Brendan Hobson. And if I'm not able to get him on this platform, as many of you know, I'm now also on the radio on Wednesday evening starting at 7 o'clock at 88.5 FM, SCS School Board's radio station. And so I may be able to get him over there tonight. I'm not sure as of yet. Excuse me. So we're working on all of this, as well as you may also have our current guest that will be coming up in a few moments over there with us. So we're working on some things, but we definitely need to have dialogue about that issue. For example, many of you are bemoaning the fact, why should we close our schools? And you feel that it's a plot toward gentrification. That may be the case, but I can also share with you that many of our schools are in dire need of repair, and many of them, if you want to know the truth of the matter, needed to have been closed 5 years ago because of the repair issues. One school in particular, I'll cite for you, which was the former Georgia Avenue School. It needed $6 million alone in HVAC repairs, and now that cost is probably closer to $10, $11 million. And that's just HVAC. We're not even talking about the rest of the building. We're not talking about mitigating asbestos. You know the situation in Kirby High School. You know some schools have heating and air problems. So there's a lot of problems with school maintenance. We could get into whose fault that is. We can get into how long that's been going on. The one encouraging thing I will say about this plan is that this construction is slated for schools that are primarily in black and brown neighborhoods. Now, still, excuse me, whether it's a viable plan or not is left up for discussion. And then some of you are saying, why now? Why, when the superintendent's getting ready to go out the door, are we having these conversations? So we're going to need to talk about this in the upcoming days and weeks. And we're going to need to separate the emotion out of this subject because, you know, I understand your alma mater is about to be closed. You can't fly your colors anymore. You got to figure out places where you're going to gather to have class reunions, the whole nine. I get that. But then we also have to look at the practicalities of maintenance. So this is a viable discussion. And this is also a why now discussion. And so this is one that we need to have. So that's coming up. So I just want to let you know we're on it. And we're going to try to take some angles of it and open up the discussion that's wider than just maybe the sound bites you may get on our general media. We really need to smoke this one over, especially when there's so many overlapping issues with this. All right, let me go to our guests, and I'm so glad to have them in the studio. First of all, we have, excuse me, with us Bishop Dr. A.D. Sullivan Jr., who is a part of the Love Power Community Action Coalition, and he comes to us via the America Rebirth Tour. He's the gentleman to our right, and the gentleman to our left, excuse me, is Pastor Stephen Bradley, who is the founder and organizer of the House of Grace Church here in Memphis. Here is our subject matter. We're going to talk about, is Memphis about to be under martial law? Is Memphis about to be under martial law? Serious question, serious issue. Gentlemen, welcome to Black Thought.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So now, let me put the ball in your court. Bishop, talked to you last night. You shared with me some interesting things. And you pretty much, unless I misunderstood you, said to me that there is a great chance that Memphis could wind up under martial law. So kind of explain that for the viewing audience.
Yes, and if I could say, just in case someone looks it up on Facebook, it's
A.E. Sullivan Jr. Thank you for your time, and basically, they're not calling it martial law, but a rose by any other name is still a rose. And the reality is, it's one thing for federal government to come in and train law enforcement. It's another thing to come in and take over law enforcement in the cover of night. And so it's concerning because no one had meetings with the public. No one came in and said, this is what we're doing, who signed off on it, where the funds came from, and how they're being used, and what's the implications on Memphis, including local government and duly elected officials, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is done by the Department of Justice by way of ATF, which is a federal agency. Each state has their rights, and each state cannot just, the federal government just cannot come in and take over. Things have to be done in a constitutional manner. And many things are being done that is very alarming, and it hasn't been made known to people. And the reality is, under a lot of the Homeland Security Act and what have you, people could be detained indefinitely without explanation. Their right to a fair and speedy trial, is not being done. So all of these constitutional or federal laws many times are being, things that are afforded to citizens by the Constitution are being superseded and undercut. And that's very alarming.
Well, let me be a skeptic on purpose.
All right.
How are they able to do this, and what mechanisms are they using to do this?
Okay. Do you want me to answer, or do you want
Either one of you, because I the skeptic is watching and asking the question, how is this able to even happen?
This was able to happen because our government officials, starting from mayors, DAs, some of the city councils, not all of them.
Going on around you. Let me give you an example of what I mean. This fine gentleman had me speak at a youth conference involving startup businesses. All right. Can you hear me? All right. I am not a businessman, nor am I involved in security. Can y'all hear us in the back? Ask them if they can hear us in the back. We'll wait until the rain dies down. you're saying. You're saying that basically this task force has come in, been created, gotten money from the federal government to basically do surveillance, the type of which we haven't really seen since the 60s and the 70s. So my question is, are they here, and what's the evidence that they're here? What have they been doing if they're here? Just kind of lay that out for us.
Last thing I saw on Facebook, one of the social justice activists, Hunter Dempster, he began to record them. They was riding in regular cars, unmarked, jumping out of cars, snatching people off the corners, harassing them, arresting them, throwing them in back seats of cars. And then when you begin to ask them who are they let you know we don't have to answer to none of you. And so how can a citizen feel safe? My question is knowing that someone that's in plain clothes got authority to arrest us, to cause havoc through our neighborhoods and our community. So they are out there, they're wearing just regular clothes like you and I, but they are having authority by the district attorney to do whatever they like and cause more havoc. And you gotta understand this, they don't have any connections to the community at all. People do not know them. We was trying to make a way to be able to have community policing and allow the police officers to stay in the communities that they live in, build rapport with the community, talk to the people, begin to get some type of commonality and a rapport and relationship with them. But now they decided not to do that, but to bring in these Navy SEALs, experts, and CIA agents or FBI agents that don't follow the rules of the state.
Well, now, you're causing me to ask further questions for clarity. We talk about a task force, and you kind of stated plainly what's happening with these persons that are in the city. But now, it causes me to ask some other questions, because right now, you have basically 3 crime entities that we know of in Memphis. You have Memphis Police, you have the Shelby County Sheriff's Department, and then you have the Crime Commission, which really is kind of like a private public entity that helps to fund, helps to get funding, and helps to kind of shape policy concerning law enforcement. And they have, if I'm not mistaken, funneled money. Matter of fact, I think that's where some of the money came from that Strickland used to get raises for police officers. So are they playing a part in this whole conversation that we're having right now, is my question.
That's a good question to ask, to say who was all involved and who was at the table. At this point in time, the citizens of Memphis, we're left in the dark. And those are the same type of questions we're asking. And then when we reached out to them to ask them the exact same question, they gave us a blanket statement in the midst of that and started coming clean. So as we dig deeper and delve deeper inside of this that just popped up on us, those are the type of questions we're asking: who's at the table, who's giving the money, and from that standpoint, a question behind that question would be: if we have these 3 entities already, and we just add in this other task force, what are your jobs now, and what is your job description going forward?
Dr. Hutchinson, could I add, that's why we're having this press conference on tomorrow at 3 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, because we're asking questions. We want the community to know there's something going on, and we're asking, we have many questions ourselves. We want to know the answers from the people that have been duly elected, and they need to explain to us. And the reality is, see, Pastor Bradley, he knows Memphis. I came from Pennsylvania, and I have I was called in because the reality is this is not just going to be done in Memphis. There are 5 cities targeted, but the whole nation is heading this way. And the reality is a lot of people are asleep. So at least the people in Memphis can stand up now before everything goes into full implementation and everybody's rights, are railroaded over. This has happened in Chicago and other places. And the reality is they've even used statistics that don't bear measure. They're saying the increase of more than 60% of last year of carjacking, the robberies and burglaries, but those statistics don't match up to the statistics that are already out and there. And so many things are sketchy, they're in gray areas, and we're just coming out in this press conference to ask questions. And we've reached out to pastors, all kind of spiritual leaders, community leaders, civil rights leaders, old and young. We want everybody to come, and we're asking the questions and we're demanding answers.
So now, in kind of wrapping this up somewhat, I did some light research on this, and it seems like all of this centers around Executive Order 12919, which was shaped by George W. Bush back in 1994. So it seems like, and basically what that says is, if we need to pull the lever and create martial law, we have the ability to do so, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess what you all are telling us is that we're being primed for this lever to be pulled at this time. So now, I guess my question to you is, why do you think the lever is about to be pulled? And what should we be doing? I don't want to preempt your press conference, of course, but I do want to have conversation because the listeners are sitting here asking some similar questions and may not have access to all of this, or they may just trying to be being able to absorb this. And so how do we know that the lever is getting ready to be pulled, and how should we begin to shape ourselves concerning this?
Well, I would say the lever may have already been pulled, only because the former Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, came here around November 2017, and that was an in and out quick thing. And then in February, there was a law passed. And then this November, the new Attorney General came through town. And again, it came through quick.
Let me stop you for a minute, because you said something I don't want us to pass. You said in February a law was passed. Open that up a little bit.
We're talking about the task force law and also the tax credit law that was locked inside of that. People have to really understand that these two are two intermingling laws that's been passed that looks like on the surface that it's going to be good for citizens. But truthfully, back to your point, is it's going to get to that executive law that we just spoke about, and it's already been pulled. And it's been pulled because we see it all over the nation. Well, in other countries, we can say. We see it in, they did it in Israel. They did it in Palestine. When they begin to say we're sending troops over, that is the beginning to do that. So when that last Attorney General came down and he pulled the lever and said, we're coming here, we got $10 million, Memphis said we're going to add another $1 million to that. So they're saying we really going to get into your streets, we're going to militarize your streets, we're going to get out here, we're going to so-called take back the city. But truth is the matter be told, locked into that is a tax credit law. And back in the day when Bill Clinton passed it, it was about corporations getting tax breaks of hiring people on welfare and below the poverty level and to get them out of poverty. But now this current administration, we're talking about Donald Trump, he amended that law and said, no, we're going to snatch away all of the welfare, all of the Section 8, all of the TennCare and everything. But they're saying what we're going to do is make it even rough for you to build more, put more crime into your neighborhoods to justify.
So that was the recent tax law basically passed by Congress.
Yes.
And you're saying that dovetailed in that with the whole tax force issue.
And that's why Jeff Sessions said he's going to walk away from it, because he felt as if creating that hostile environment by saying we're already in poverty. Here in Memphis, Tennessee, we already know 22.9% are in poverty. And that 22.9%, 44% are children. To make it even plain, that's 180,000 people out of 670,000 people that makes up the poorest metropolitan city in America. And they're saying that we know you're poor, we know you live in an impoverished area. You spoke about closing down the schools and gentrifying neighborhoods. That on top of that, we're going to compound the issue even more by snatching away the benefits that you already have. Now that you know the crime is going to rise up. Now we're locked inside of 5-mile ghettos without transportation, without opportunity, no access to jobs, but we got free access to guns and drugs. So it's back to the war on drugs again. It wasn't a war on drugs, it was a war on black and brown communities. And so instead of dumping drugs this time, we're going to snatch away what we gave you. and now you have to fight over the little crumbs left. And what happens? We fight only the people that we see. Because we're lashing out saying we need more. And the administrative, instead of taking $1.1 million and putting it inside the communities to create a better neighborhood and create more opportunities, they could have done that. And no, they said, no, we don't want you to have opportunity. We want to take that away, and we're going to put these police and this militia inside of your neighborhoods to create more havoc.
And 2 points I want to say to that. It was not a war on drugs. It was a war on drug addicts. And that's what the people out there need to know. The other thing is, a lot of people don't know, under Homeland Security and all these federal agencies, they're identifying drug addicts or drug dealers more so as terrorists.
Yes. And
that's very dangerous. It's going to get much worse. If they identify all drug dealers as terrorists, it's going to be horrible. And if we come to that and we don't stand up now and say something, it's going to be something many are going to regret looking back on.
All right, let me put some light pushback to that, though. Big Mama sitting here listening to the last statement you said, Bishop, where you said that drug dealers are going to be identified as terrorists. And Big Mama, who's sitting in North Memphis right now, with all these crazy drug dealers around her saying, good, they need to be terrorists because I want to be able to get out of my house and move and handle my business the way I want to. How do you speak to that? Because you know that's part of the conversation.
Yes. Well, there's a couple ways to look at it. Number one, we've all had people in our families that had certain issues and problems. Do we want anybody in our families hunted down on the streets?
Nope.
No.
Secondly, it's one thing, look at how America looked at crack, and now look how it deals with opioids. That's a conversation a lot of people are not really having. And so why are certain people being targeted while others are getting mercy and getting help and getting treatment?
Well, let me jump in and even help that conversation. Back in the day when opiates, and we talking about heroin and other stuff like that, y'all. Back in the day when it was mostly us lighting up with heroin, you didn't have this outcry. And we talking about 60s, 70s, when you had a lot of methadone maintenance clinics all over the country, and basically we were in those clinics. You didn't hear a lot of talk about it. But now that this has spread to the suburbs to the point where it's impacting some lives that people feel that quote unquote shouldn't be impacted, all of a sudden it's a problem. Let's take it even further. Now, granted, I'm supposed to be the interviewer, but I just want to shift for a little bit. Let's take this a little further. When we start talking about, for example, the expansion in the cannabis industry, let me help y'all for a minute. Remember now, these drug laws really came into force under Bill Clinton. We don't like to talk about the first black president like that. That's how we used to call him, but these came in these were enacted under him.
Yes.
And so now you had all of these little penny ante drug dealers going to jail over a roach or maybe a half a joint, and now you got this big industry where people are getting rich off of selling even the oil from reefer, and some of the ones that probably know the business even better than the ones that are doing the business now can't get in it because they have a record. All of that was game. Let's just put it where it is. It was straight game, and it's straight game now. So we have to look at all of this, and one of the reasons why when you had this conversation with me yesterday, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with your position, but I'm saying that we need to be educated as to what may be on its way or may be already here. Is our police departments have already been militarized because of Homeland Security. So the weapons that can be used against us in the ways that you suggest already sit here in Memphis. They don't have to be sent here. They're already here. We've seen them. They're already in police departments all over the country right now. I wound up on the news because I saw one of these things, and I complained on my Facebook page. All kind of people are nosy on my page. You'd be surprised. Matter of fact, sitting in the shadows over here, State Senator G.A. Hardaway. He can attest. I had a conversation about one of our mayoral candidates, and the next thing I know, this is on Facebook, and the next thing I know, he reaches out to me, and the three of us are having breakfast, talking about this pertinent issue. So they saw that on my page, and one of the news organizations reached out and interviewed me. They have basically the same type of trucks they had in South Africa that was killing folk. They're killing machines. They're not to exact the peace. They're to kill people. They got slots in the trucks where 8 or 9 sharpshooters can be in the truck. They got a turret on the top of the truck that's like a tank that can blow folk up. And there's nothing really that exists short of a nuclear weapon that can disarm this truck. It can roll over cars. So if it can roll over cars, it can roll over you in the street with no problem. And we have 2 of these I know of in Memphis right now. 2 of them. The one that they showed at this night out, you know, the night out they do. Yes. The one that they showed was the smaller one. The police officer was bragging to me. Well, this is the older, smaller one. I'm like, why would you even brag over showing this period? And then you're going to tell me this is the smaller one. So they have at least 2, probably have 4 or 5. Yes. And now you're saying to us that the possibility that we might see these more often exists. Yes. So now, in closing this segment, talk to us about the press conference. Tell us where it is, and just kind of give us a snippet of what y'all going to be talking about.
The press conference, We the People, is being held on Thursday, December the 13th, 2018, 3 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, and it will be held at Claiborne Temple, 294 Hernando Street in Memphis. We're speaking up, we're speaking out, we're asking questions. That's why we're coming, because we need answers, and we need them now.
All right, you heard it here, y'all. We had with us Bishop A.E. Sullivan Jr., glad for your presence, and we had Pastor Stephen Bradley with us, glad for your presence. You need to check out this press conference, We the People, Thursday. That's tomorrow, December the 13th at 3 p.m. at Claiborne Temple. Y'all know where it is, so we can get some more information. And perhaps we need to be asking some of our elected officials and others that are involved with law enforcement to have conversation with us about these items, to tell us if they're true or false, and to really speak to the issues. Because we don't want to make up stuff, but we want to have information. So I'm asking right now, you know what? In light of what I just said on Facebook, maybe if I post this on my Facebook page, they may come out the woodworks. But anyway. All right, gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Glad that you're here today. I want to kind of segue into something else, and then we're going to close out our show. Again, I'm grateful that the Bishop and Pastor Bradley have been here with us. But I want to talk to you about something else. I've been out of pocket for about the last 3 weeks. Part of the reason is I went to the African nation of Rwanda. As many of you know, I'm the mission director for the Progressive National Baptist Convention. And so as a part of my work, we're looking at how we can help the Rwandans with theological education. To be a part of a pastor's leadership conference, and be involved in the youth conference, and be involved in the business conference. You know, they made good work of the fact that I came to visit. So the youth conference had over 1,200 participants. It was awesome. The business conference had over 300 participants. It was awesome. And it goes without saying that the pastors conference, the first time they did it with over 200 participants, it was awesome. And so I want to thank personally the Tri-State Defender in Karanja and Janaque for also allowing me to do blog posts while I was over there. So 4 of them have already posted. I think 2 more are in the works to be posted so that you could get a glimpse of what was happening while I was over there. And to be candid, most of us hear about Africa, but we've never seen Africa. We've heard that it's the dark continent. We've heard all kind of negative things about Africa. We've seen people out in the rural, half naked, starving to death. We've seen wars and rumors of war, but we've very seldom gotten a glimpse into Africa itself, how the people tick, what can we observe about the people that are there. So hopefully we're ready to be up. I want to just show you 2 brief videos, and if you want to see them again, they're on my website, noelhutchinson.com. One video shows you a worship experience where a pastor was being consecrated or installed. The other video shows you what happened while I was teaching during the Pastoral Leadership Conference. They have heavy rains in Africa. They have zinc roofs in Africa. Not like the roofs we have here where when it rains, you barely hear anything. When water hits a zinc roof and the homes are not insulated because it's not necessary, because it's pretty much warm most of the time, it's loud. And so I was in the middle of teaching, the rain was pounding, and all of a sudden the power went out. So I couldn't continue to teach, and then something amazing happened. The pastor said, you know what? We're going to worship the Lord until A, the rain goes away, and B, the power comes back on. And then you see an amazing interlude of what that worship looked like. And generally, we don't get to see this because everything we see is a negative filter toward Africa. So I hope that these 2 videos will help to dispel some of that. And you can kind of get a glimpse as to some of the things that happen in Africa in general and Rwanda in particular. So Megan, if you have the video, go ahead and hit the first one and go right into the second one.
Then the pastor and his wife will come here. We will pray for them all together. Let everybody touch that anointing oil. Pastor Sam and wife will have to come and kneel down.
Be a symbol of your strength that this will already add, as the book of Acts says, to this church daily. And above all, your presence. Going on around you. Let me give you an example of what I mean. This fine gentleman had me speak at a youth conference involving startup businesses. All right. Can you hear me? All right. I am not a businessman, nor am I involved in computers. Can y'all hear us in the back? Ask them if they can hear us in the back. We'll wait until the rain dies down. We hope you enjoyed the show. Again, remember the press conference that's taking place, We the People, 3 o'clock tomorrow, which is Thursday, December the 13th, 3 p.m. at Claiborne Temple on 294 Hernando Street. You know where it is. And we'll be having more conversations about my trip to Rwanda in our next show. Thank you for watching. Time for me to go. And as I always say, brother, man, sister, woman, young boy, young girl, put your mind in gear and put your thinking cap on.